This episode of Beyond the Post is made possible by Riverside.fm. Riverside is a remote recording platform designed to make it easy to create professional quality podcasts, video interviews, and other forms of content, even when participants are in different locations. You can sign up a free trial to Riverside.fm, where you'll get 2 hours of multi-track recordings per month, a full suite of editing tools, and more by heading over to BeyondThePost.fm/Riverside. Once again, that's BeyondThePost.fm/Riverside. Welcome back to Beyond the Post with Robb Dunwood and Bodie Grimm. I'm Robb Dunwood.
And I'm Bodie Grimm.
And Bodie, normally I would have something scripted here. I would have something written out, something clever to say. But this is our wrap-up episode for our season 1 of Beyond the Post. So I don't want to say that we're just kind of winging it, that we're just kind of going off the top of our head. But we're winging it and going off the top of our head. So how do you feel about our first episode? How do you feel about our first season of Beyond the Post?
I am really proud of our first season. You know what, Rob? This is way back in October when I messaged you. I wasn't even sure you would say that you were going to get on the call with me. So from us to go from, I think it was like October, let's call it 15th, to now, we have built something that I'm really proud of. What are your thoughts?
I'm the same way. And folks are listening. It's like, wow, you guys started doing this, working on this project back in October of last year. And we can get into that a little bit. We did. But Bodie, you tell me if I'm off on this. I think that for probably the first 3 months, we didn't, 2.5, 3 months, we really weren't recording anything. I think a lot of what you and I were doing was honestly figuring out what we eventually wanted to create, because we went through a few iterations and things changed a little bit. But also a big part of that is because you and I knew of each other. We had been on a show or two together. We had had a conversation here and there, but we really didn't know each other. And I think that a big part of, I would say from the end, the middle of October till towards the end of 2023, a lot of that was just you and I really getting to know each other and figuring out how we were going to ultimately put this show together.
Rob and I really had never produced anything together. Like you said, we were on shows together, but that's not the same. Somebody else is producing that. Somebody else is coming up with the topics. And we are two people. I'd say we text maybe once or twice a week, and then we meet for like 3 hours. On average, I'd say 2 once a week. And that's our communication. So when we get together, we kind of have this, I don't know if we would call it a production meeting. It's more of a conversation of how we want the show to go. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun figuring out how you work, and I've learned a lot from you. I am really proud of this episode, or not this episode, this season. And I hope that people have enjoyed it, and I hope they take the time to email us and let us know what they would like to see from us.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. I have learned a lot, and here's the interesting part. You and I together have been podcasting for decades. We've been doing this a long time. But the thing is, this was, I believe, a very different type of show for each of us, where almost all the shows that I have done have been very, very specifically tech focused. Not a particular tech focus, but they've all been about tech. I can just talk about tech right off the top of my head. I have not been a big interviewer of people on shows. Now, over the years, I have done many dozens of interviews, but I've never had a show that you would say is an interview show, because my interviews come relatively far and few in between for the most part. That is something that is different, to where darn near every other episode, we're bringing you an interview where the goal for us is to get some really, really good nuggets out of the interviewee that is going to be beneficial to our listeners. And that's something different. So I've learned a lot about just pacing and how to have a conversation and allowing there to be uncomfortable silence at times to get that good sound bite. It's been really interesting, and I'm excited for when we move into season 2.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I did not realize was unusual, and Angela Hollowell actually pointed this out. She said it's not normal for two hosts to be interviewing one person. And I had not really thought about that, because a lot of the podcasts I listen to, Daily Tech News Show being one, is there's a kind of an interviewee segment in there that's got a little bit of that, and that's kind of what I was going for when I was thinking about you and I interviewing somebody, just kind of tag teaming it from different perspectives. But yeah, when I started looking around, I was like, there really isn't very many podcasts out there that are interviewing people who are experts in their field. But there's two hosts, there's two
Right.
interviewers. It's a little bit of unusual. It's normally like a one-on-one type of thing, or a group of folks that are in that conversation.
Yeah, there are some, and there are some who actually do it relatively well. And I think a lot of times, as I'm watching content being created, I take for granted the level of skill that someone may have. I now have a new respect for shows that ultimately have multiple hosts when they're doing interviews, because it is significantly more difficult to do, simply because it's not just you having a conversation with your guest. It is you and your host having a conversation with a guest, in some cases with multiple guests. And the host of the show have to actually be in simpatico to make sure that they are asking the right questions, that they're not stepping over each other, that they're allowing to have course correction in real time, because someone may have said something that we need to dig into more. And as I said, even though you and I have been doing this thing called podcasting for a long, long time, it's a new skill set. So there's new muscle memory that we had to build. There's new, there's new skills that we had to acquire, and I'm better for it. I absolutely had a blast doing this. Bodie, what would you say is one of the big takeaways from season 1 of Beyond the Post? What did you learn about just creating the show that you may not have known that you were going to learn before we created the show?
Well, I mean, even though I'd done several podcasts before this, I kind of fell into that trap of, oh, well, we're two, we'll call us mature podcasters. We'll be able to do this, and this pretty easily, and maybe we'll have some challenges with this. Like you said that you when you're interviewing somebody, you don't want to step on the other person's toes, right? And we still want to get that interview. And one of the things I think we do really good, and I don't know if this is right for everybody, is that we don't have like, hey, you're leading this interview, I'm leading this interview, whatever. We don't have that discussion. We ask questions, and if somebody asks a question that's not in the script, that's fine. We can play off of that. And I think in season 2 and hopefully further seasons, we'll be able to do more of that, because it is a learning process. But the pre-production stuff that we have to do to get ready, I was not quite prepared for that. But that is a lot of, like you said earlier, learning how we are going to, how each of us works, and then bringing that together. And I think we've been fairly successful in terms of, we really haven't had a lot of disagreements in that. As far as post-production goes, I told you at the very beginning, you're like, hey, that sounds like a lot of work, post-production. I said, no, I love doing editing video. I'm going to do that. And you're like, okay, cool. And it is a lot of work. For a standard episode, it's about 3 hours of editing on my side, and I love every minute of it. One of the things that I did learn, though, is that you have to really, I have a pretty good laptop. It's a 2023 M2 MacBook Pro. You have to give yourself some time for spinning those episodes out. You have to give yourself a lot of space in terms of hard drive space. I have a terabyte drive. I thought, oh, that's enough. I can edit one episode at a time, and then take those files and move them to a external hard drive when I'm done editing them. And not really. Those files eat up a lot of your space really quick. So I had to buy a new drive that was really fast. I think it was 2,000 megabits per second, in order for me to make the editing work for this. So it's just like the whole experience of The post-production side of things, I was a little off guard. I caught off guard just a little bit. If this was just audio, which is what I'm used to doing, it wouldn't take half that time. I'm pretty fast at editing audio, but the video, that was a challenge for sure, but it's a good challenge. What about you, Rob?
One of the big takeaways that I have from season 1, and this is, as I said, I've been podcasting for a long time, but I had to learn something about myself, is that you have to keep the main thing the main thing. I get very easily distracted by bubbles and butterflies and birds chirping and flying around and ooh, let's do this. Let's add this. And there's 19 different things that I would like to be able to do for Beyond the Post. But at the end of the day, it's like, well, what do we really need to do? We really need to sit down and storyboard out our conversations we're going to have with other folks. We need to run down the conversations we're having between ourselves, and we need to record episodes and ultimately get them edited and put them out. And everything else is almost tertiary to that. Now, there's some very, very important things that we want to get done, but I think at some point it was almost like drinking from a fire hose, because we want to have a website that rivals McDonald's or Coca-Cola. We want to have email newsletters. We want to have membership, systems on the back end. We want to do all of these things. And really, at the end of the day, what do we essentially need to get done? We need to create content and put it out there so that people could listen to it, because we could have spent another 2 months working on building a membership platform. But if no one actually is hearing content from us to say, oh, you know what, let's go join that membership platform, that the membership platform actually makes sense to put that early in your process. Now, when I say that, I'm not saying that you should not plan and you should not do things before you're ready for them. I am a big fan of being prepared for opportunities that aren't necessarily presenting themselves to you, right when you are preparing for them. That's just called being ready. I like to stay ready so I don't have to get ready. But in that vein, sometimes you just have to say, we're going to put this on the back burner. Let's get these episodes recorded. Let's get these episodes edited. Let's get these episodes posted up, and let's start getting feedback on the episodes. And then we can move into some of those other things. So I think that, and this one is interesting to me, because I do, Bodie, talk to a lot of people specifically about starting podcasts. And the thing that I tell them regularly is like, keep the main thing the main thing. And I recognize that even though you and I are going through it, even though you and I have a level of expertise in this thing called podcasting, we kind of still had to do that.
Yeah. You know what, Rob, when you were talking, what I could picture was, when I was in high school, I was a lifeguard. So you had to tread water with a brick above your head for a certain amount of time, right? And if you couldn't do that, you couldn't be a lifeguard. So that was one of the tests that you had to do. What you and I were doing was, it felt like treading water with a Toyota above our head. And we kept making little changes over the time frame, because we started recording episodes kind of in December of 2023, but we really started recording episodes starting in January and February. We did a lot in that time frame. But we slowly started to realize, hey, we need to remove this from the scenario. And eventually, I think we made our way down to like a cinder block and not a brick. But I think in season 2, I think we'll have a brick. In season 3, we won't be holding anything above our heads at all. We'll just be treading water.
Mm-hmm. And here's what's true. Even when you're starting something new, you have to go through it. You have to go through the growing pains of the new thing to figure out what ultimately works, what doesn't work, and how you're going to move forward. So, we are a podcast. We are also a YouTube channel, and that is very different for me. Now, I would say almost every single podcast that I record also has a video component on it. But in most cases, and in fact, in all but one case, and now with Beyond the Post, in all but 2 cases, the video component is just additive stuff. It's not like we're doing anything specifically, in my case, for people who are watching on YouTube. It's just that if you just happen to be on YouTube and you would like to listen to people talk in a way that, regardless of whether you watch it or not, if you just listen to it, you'll get the same level of content. That's what I've always done. So for me, it is very different to where we have to be intentional about things that we want to make pop out on video. And once again, I give you kudos for that editing effort, because that's just not me. That is not you. You tell me regularly, Rob, this does not work for me. I absolutely enjoy doing this. And I would imagine there's probably some things that I do that you probably would cringe at, as well. But I'm glad that I actually have a partner in this that enjoys doing some of the things that I don't enjoy doing. What that experience, though, is doing for me is that, you know what? It's not as bad as I thought. So I've bought new lights. I've ordered a new camera. I'm doing other things so that I can help the world by not showing up in front of them with this ugly mug and not trying to do anything to make it look better.
Yeah, and I will say the moment, and I think I've said this somewhere along the lines, that we, I don't know if it was recorded into a podcast or if we were just talking about it, or one of our practice podcasts, but the moment you sent me, you're like, hey, here's the intro for this, I think it was Sierra Maria's episode. Here's the intro for Sierra Maria's episode. Like, we didn't have a discussion about you doing that. We didn't have a discussion about anything. You just sent it to me and I was like, this is perfect. That kind of thing is having somebody that can look ahead as a partner and say, these are the things that need to get done, without a content calendar, which was, spoiler alert, we're going to talk about content calendars in season 2, but without a content calendar, we just had, like, Rob just knew this is what needed to get done, and he just got it done. We didn't have any discussion about it or anything like that. So that makes a world of difference. If you're going to do this with somebody else, is you can't be one person just constantly beating themselves up and doing all the work. And I know that happens in a lot of cases where one person is more passionate about it than another, because this is hard work. And if you're doing it all by yourself, it's just not going to work very well. You're just going to have a hard time with it.
Yeah, there's a metric, and on its face, it sounds kind of horrible that 1 out of 10 podcasts make it beyond episode 3. Just 1 out of 10, and only 1 out of 100 podcasts make it beyond episode 20. Now, we're not to episode 20 yet, but we definitely got past episode 3. So I think that we're, we are in the clear there. But one of the reasons I believe that so many podcasts just fizzle out, they pod fade by the 3rd time or the 4th time they do a recording, is because it is a lot of work. And maybe the amount of work that goes into not just making a podcast, but making a good podcast, making a podcast that is actually worth the time and attention that people pay to it. I believe that is a lot harder than I think a lot of people bargain for. And, just having a partner that you can share some of that load with makes things so much easier. I've had so many ideas for shows that I wanted to start, and it's just like, I just don't have time to do it. I don't have the time to do all these things. But when you work with, other folks who have a skill set, it's like, oh, I can handle that. Oh, I can handle that. And you can start to, divvy up some of those responsibilities. It just makes getting through the thing a little easier, because honestly, in the beginning, I don't want to say it's a grind, but you are grinding to get to the point to where you're running smoothly. And I think you and I both would say it is much easier doing episode 772 than it is doing episodes 2 to 7. Mm-hmm. You just get into a group. There are shows that literally I have done that have thousands of episodes and can almost turn the mic on, have a clue about what I want to talk about, and that episode looks like it is, it's like a finely run machine, and it's just muscle memory. So I'm excited for us to actually get to the point where we've got muscle memory, to where things are just happening and they're just clicking like that. And I think we're getting there.
This episode right here is a good example of that, because we started writing a script and you said, you know what, let's keep this conversational. And I was like, great. We don't have a script. We had, I was going to talk about editing. You were going to talk about building too fast. That was our script. That was it. And I don't know, we filled like 20 some minutes of information just based off of that. Maybe at this point, Rob, maybe we could just kind of summarize real quick what we learned, to just kind of, like you said, say it again, say it one more time, right? Let's summarize what we learned.
Let's tell folks what we're going to tell them, then we tell them, and then we tell them what we told them. So let's I think we're at the let's tell them what we told them part of the conversation at this point. You want to start, or you want me to go first?
You know what? I'll start, because I think I think I know where you're going to go, and I think it's your wrap up is going to be better than mine. So, editing. If you're going to edit and produce this show, plan your show out to include how much time you need to edit. Make sure you have those hard drives, because I'm going to be honest with you. I was editing at work, and I ran out of hard drive space on my laptop, and I was like, shoot, everything's closed. It's like 11 o'clock at night. I was able to get a hard drive the next morning from Best Buy, but like you want to make sure you have everything in place, because when you're doing your edits, when you're doing your planning of your show, you don't want something like running out of hard drive space to trip you up. And then I've said this before, but find a good partner. You don't have to have a host. You can find a partner that doesn't want to be on camera but would love to produce your show, and work on that together. Find somebody that you can bounce things off of, build a community. I think that's going to make you a better podcaster versus staying siloed in your own little world. Because we've said this before, it is very lonely to create content. And sometimes it's very negative when you create content, because you got a lot of haters out there that look at what you do on your first time and they don't give you any slack. They tell you immediately that sucks. So build your community, whether they're creators or whether they're listeners. Build your community and get that support system.
I will piggyback off of that. I will absolutely co-sign that. I think there's a saying that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with someone else. And that applies here. Now, I'm not saying that every podcaster has to have a team of 7 in order to produce and edit and get a show out. But particularly if it's like your first show, if it is something that you're doing for the first time, just having someone else to bounce ideas off of is a very, very good thing to have. So even if you are a solo podcaster, get yourself into a community, find people that are doing similar things to what you're doing, so that you can just ask questions. You can just bounce ideas off someone. You can say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. What do you think? And actually get some additional feedback before you go and just do things all on your own, because it can be very lonely when you're just going by yourself. So I will definitely co-sign that. And then I'll just wrap up with this, because one of the benefits, Bodie, that you and I had is that we both have done many episodes of podcasts before. So we kind of know how the actual podcasting or just the tips and the tricks and all the things like that, we've done them. These are things that we've come to. I know that a lot of our listeners are doing this they're in the beginning stages. Maybe you've only recorded a couple episodes. Maybe you haven't even recorded yet. You've just decided this is something that you want to do. And I just say, give yourself some grace, because you will not be as good as Larry King on your first episode. It is impossible. You're not going to be that good of an interviewer. You're not going to be out there doing David Letterman style interviews day one. And if that is the standard that you hold yourself to, you end up getting to the point where you never release anything. So I absolutely enjoyed our first episode. I enjoyed our first season, but I think that it's only going to get better from here. And that's just because Bodie and I are going to get more used to each other. We're going to actually have more ideas about what makes a good interview. And the only way for us to get to that is to simply just get through it. So I hope if there's anything that you've taken away from season 1, it is that you don't have to go it alone. Even if you are a solo podcaster, even if you are a solo creator, if you're writing by yourself, you don't have to go it alone. Find a community of other people who are doing similar things and bounce ideas off of them. And then once you do it, give yourself some grace. Just make sure that you are allowing yourself to grow. You're not going to be as good day one as you're going to be good day 101. So if you can literally get 1% better every time you record, and you record, let's just say you record an episode or two a week. So you're going to have 50 to 100 episodes at the end of the year if you don't take any breaks. If you get 1% better every time you do something, you're going to be a heck of a lot better at the end of that year than you were when you started.
Yes, and to your point of find yourself some podcasters or content creators, there are communities in almost every city of any reasonable size. Like I grew up in Nikiski, Alaska. There's probably not much of a community of podcasters there. You might get one or two, but there are get-togethers if you go on Facebook or some of these other sites that I'm blanking on, but there are get-togethers, there are groups where you can go and have coffee or have a beer and you can talk about this stuff. I've done it here in Phoenix and it's a good time. So you could definitely do that if you are just starting out and you know no one and you need a hand or you need a community. And you can also email Rob and I, because one of the things Allison Sheridan said is she's like, hey, this is a really good show. I really enjoy you guys talking together. What is your email? How do I contact you? And I was like, that is a really good point, Allison. We've already recorded all of our episodes, so I can't just throw that in there. So we might as well put it in there in this episode. But my email is Bodie, BODIE, at beyondthepost.fm. And Rob's email is, go ahead, Rob.
Rob, it is ROB as in boy, B as in boy, at beyondthepost.fm. And Bodie, you talked about communities. You know what else we're doing? We're creating a community right here at Beyond the Post. So if anyone is interested in, it's like, I don't know who to talk to. You can talk to us. We are building a community here. And at some point, we expect this community to be thriving, full of members, to where it's not just you asking questions of me and Bodie, it's you asking questions of other members of the community. That's when community really starts to happen, when you actually get community members that are talking amongst themselves. So that is a goal that we have for Beyond the Post as we move into our second season. And so once again, if you are interested in that, just hit us up on, beyondthepost.fm/Patreon. And that is where we are initially building our community. Once again, that is beyondthepost.fm/Patreon.
Excellent. There's only one more thing, Rob, because this is a seasonal show. It has come to an end. Now, when does season 2 start?
I believe that you and I are going to be starting around the beginning of July. So we're going to give ourselves a little bit of a break. You and I both have some vacations coming up, and I think we're going to get back to it around the first week of July.
Yes, the first week of July, the first Wednesday in July is July 3rd, because I wrote down July 1st. That would be incorrect. July 3rd is the date that we will start that, releasing new episodes. And season 2, the plan is for it to be a little bit longer than season 1, and season 3 will be a little bit longer than season 2. So we'll see how that works out. I'm
excited about it. And this is one of the things that I will say is very different for me. You and I, this is the magic of editing and how things come out. Not so much in real time. We've already started working on season 2.
We have.
For me, because most of my stuff is news driven, I can't start talking about stuff in the, towards the end of April that are coming out in the beginning of July, months later, because today's news is not going to be what's going to be in July's news. That is something that I am truly enjoying about this type of show, to where we record it. And just to give you some insight Sasha's making, our episodes aren't even necessarily recorded in order. So This is truly the last episode Bodie and I are recording for season 1. But when you go from episode 1 through this episode, they are not recorded in the order in which you hear them. And that is the magic of editing and release schedules. It is a beautiful thing.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. All right, Rob, I think we have covered our season 1 wrap up wonderfully. So I think we need to go ahead and end this so we can start working on season 2.
Absolutely. So until we holler at you again, Come check us out at beyondthepost.fm, and we'll talk to you in July.
Take care, everybody.